Hey and welcome or welcome back to The Books Are Everywhere. So today I am here with my first wrap up of the year, my January wrap up. I read 10 books in January, which is good. Like, it's not my best reading month, but my best reading month is hard to beat because it's like 24 books. But honestly, I am pretty happy with 10. I am 2 books ahead of my reading goal for the year, which is 100 books, so that's pretty good going. I feel like that's a pretty solid way to end the month of January. My reading definitely always dips a little bit in January after I've had that like real push to complete my reading challenge for the previous year in December. So I did read a lot less in January than I did read in December, which is absolutely fine. So yeah, I'm just going to take you through in order of when I read them, everything I read in January and how I found it. And the first book I read in January is Ellie Peely is Brown by Christine Pilanayagam. Sorry if I really pronounced that very badly, but this one is a teen book that is following Ellie Peely, who is basically kind of a coming of age book. It's about her at school feeling like she's kind of invisible, she's trying to be cool and she's just not really getting anywhere with it. And then this new boy arrives at school who she starts to have a crush on, and she kind of ends up becoming a bit more centre of attention by the end of it, which is really interesting to read about. This one is also about her songwriting and the fact that she really likes making music, and throughout this book the thing I really loved about it, and it really stood out to me, is the fact that there is actually the songs in the book. So in the physical version, I'm just trying to find one because I did just spot one on the page, but in the physical version these do show up as QR codes and you can scan the QR codes and listen to them. So there's the first one with the QR code at the bottom of the page, and in the audiobook which I was listening to, these literally just play out, which was really interesting because I don't think I've ever had that in an audiobook before. Like, there's maybe been a bit of instrumental music and like maybe a bit of music at the start and the end, but I've never actually had full songs in the middle that were like produced for the book, and they just played in the audiobook, which was really cool. And then I checked the physical copy to see whether that was still a thing in here, and I thought it was a really cool idea to have the QR codes in there so you can still have that same kind of interactive experience. But yeah, I did enjoy this one. I knew it would always be a little bit too teen for me in terms of like there's a lot that I probably wouldn't have thought too much about if I was maybe 14, 15, but to me things seem a little bit cliche now, but obviously that's personal taste. I also read a lot of middle grade and I do read a lot of young adult books that I really enjoy. I think sometimes things can just seem a little bit tropey or a little bit cliche, which is obviously completely personal taste, so I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. And then the next book I started but actually didn't really pick up properly until the end of the month was Jamie by Aldi Lipinski. This is a proof copy of this book that was kindly sent to me by the publisher, so thank you very much to Hachette for sending me this copy, and I was very excited to receive this one. This comes out in March. It comes out, there is a date somewhere in this, 30th of March 2023, and honestly please all be on the lookout for this book because it absolutely blew me away. It was incredible. So well done. So this is following Jamie, who is a non-binary kid who is in their last year at primary school, and they are suddenly faced with the fact that there is only 2 high schools in the area, and one of them is a boys' school and one of them is a girls' school, and nobody has thought about where Jamie should go. And everyone's kind of looking to them to make a decision, and Jamie is like, why has nobody thought about this? This is not an issue that I should be making a decision on, something needs to change. And this is following Jamie and their 2 friends as they kind of try and make people listen about why this is an issue. And it was just brilliant. It was so well done. At the end of every chapter, it's almost as if Jamie is speaking to themselves, and there is like little guides to different words. So the one I've just landed on is discrimination, but it covers all kind of things like hormones, puberty blockers, hormone replacement therapy, gender, misgendering, and it's just everything is done in such an approachable way. I think this one will be such an important book for the middle grade category, but also like everybody should read this because I think everyone could learn something from reading this. And I feel like those are the most important books, but also this was also fun and adventurous. And I loved the friendship group in here, and I loved the exploration of the family as well. I think it was just all brilliantly handled. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it so much. 5 out of 5 stars for Jamie by Aldi Lipinski. Please, everybody, look out for it. And the next one I picked up was A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik, and I'm actually going to talk about this series as a whole, but I'm going to put these two down because they're very heavy. So I read the entire series. I buddy read this with Alex over the course of January, and we actually managed to finish it, which I'm very happy about because this has been sat on my shelf basically ever since the first one came out, and I've been collecting them as they've come out. So to finally actually read it was pretty cool. But this one follows, why have I forgotten her name already? I only finished it like last week. Elle. And Elle lives in this like school of magic, which is, there's like kind of the design. There's the like design for it. It's like this kind of like spiral and they move down. It's really cool. I like that the end papers have that design on, and I think there might actually be another map somewhere in here. This is the Illumicrate edition with the standard dust jacket on, just to confuse everybody. But this one follows Elle, who is in the School of Magic, and in the world, so it's kind of like the real world, but there is these schools called the Scholomantses, and in these schools there is no teachers. You are just left, and you either die or you graduate. And graduation, you're at a risk of death. And there are these like creatures in here. The magic is like mana, so it's kind of like nature related or like earth related, which was really interesting. And this is basically following Elle through her kind of time at the Scholomance, following her friendships, and it was interesting. I've heard very mixed things about this series. Like, I've heard a lot of people say that Naomi Novik's writing can be quite hard to get used to, and this book can be quite hard to get into, and I definitely feel like I can completely see why people say that. Like, I completely understand it. It did kind of take me quite a while to get into, and the chapters in here are sometimes so long, like up to like 40 pages long, and it did kind of feel like the whole series felt a little bit like a slog, and it was like, it was okay. I liked them, but they didn't impress me. Like, I didn't feel that engaged with the story. A lot of it's kind of info dumpy, and I didn't really feel like that connected to the characters. The plot was interesting, the concept was really interesting and unique, but it just kind of flopped a little bit. Like, I can see why this probably has, like, I have seen a lot of people who felt quite similarly, and I can completely see why. And I think I rated all of these 3 stars. And the next one is AJ and the Mumbai Sun by Varsha Shah, and this one was really interesting. This is a middle grade, and it's following AJ, who's been abandoned on the Mumbai railways, and he finds this abandoned printing press. He has always wanted to be a journalist, so him and his 2 friends come across his printing press and they decide to create the Mumbai Sun, which is a newspaper. So they find all sorts of things like about their local area while they're kind of hunting down stories. They uncover corruption, fight for justice, and battle to save their slum from bulldozers. And they also want to win the most important cricket match ever. This one was honestly really enjoyable. I love the friendship that AJ had with his 2 friends. I loved the discussions in this that were about corruption and about saving the slums and really important themes like that also felt quite engaging and quite approachable for this age group, and it also still had that like adventure side of it and the friendship side of it, and it was very kind of atmospheric as well, which I really enjoyed. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars for this one. I then read All That's Left in the World, and this is by Eric J. Brown, and this was sent to me by the publisher, so thank you to Hodder for sending me this one. This is a proof copy that I received when this one came out last year, and I still haven't gotten around to reading this. Honestly, I enjoyed this so much more than I expected to. This is set in a post-apocalyptic landscape where there has been a plague that has wiped out most of humanity, and this is following Jamie and Andrew, who are strangers. They are one of the only 2 people left alive, and they basically come across each other and form this friendship which may develop into something more. There is also obviously quests that they both kind of want to reach certain places or find certain people in this land that is very much post-apocalyptic, and there obviously is like tensions created from that kind of landscape. I listened to the audiobook of this and I thought that this would just be kind of, I'd like it but it wouldn't blow me away, but honestly it was really good. I really enjoyed this. I really liked Jamie and Andrew as characters. I thought the plot was really good. It made me want to keep reading on because I wanted to find out what was going to happen to these two. I really rooted for them. They were really likeable. Yeah, there was just a lot that I really enjoyed about this that I didn't really expect to, and I thought it was really well done, so I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. And the next one I picked up was The ABC Murders by Agatha Christie, which is one of the Poirot books, which is following a murderer that is linked to ABC in multiple ways. So they seem to be going from places that are like A, then B, then C. They also seem to be leaving these ABC railway guides every time they murder somebody, and Poirot is basically following this murderer when they send a letter to say this is going to happen on this day, and trying to find out who the murderer is. This one is also set partly in and around Torquay, which is partly why I wanted to pick this one up. I have been trying to slowly make my way through my Agatha Christie collection, but I was actually visiting Torquay, so I read this one partly while I was in Torquay, and there will be another video to kind of go through that and a vlog basically where I read this in Torquay and have a look at some of the places that Agatha Christie lived and visited. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. It's only just over 200 pages, and once I got stuck in it didn't take me long to read at all, and I really liked it. I felt like once you get into Agatha Christie's writing it is very approachable, and there's a lot to like about this one, and I'm glad that I read it when I did when I was visiting Torquay, because it was great to see some of those places in real life and relate to them to the book. But yeah, there will be an upcoming vlog for this one, and I rated this one 4 out of 5 stars. I feel like you can really see why my end of year wrap up ends up being a lot of 4 stars because I feel like half of the books I've rated 4 stars. But anyway, the next one I read was The Cats We Meet Along the Way by Nadia Mikhail, and I loved this book. This was so good. This one's following Aisha, whose sister disappears, and they basically try and find her sister. This is also in like a post-apocalyptic world, or basically in a world where they know that the world is going to end in like a year's time. And it's following Aisha and her family and her boyfriend and her boyfriend's family as they travel across, I think they're in Malaysia, yeah, Malaysia, in search of Aisha's sister. And it is beautiful. The way this is written is almost like it's a middle grade crossed with a YA crossed with an adult book. Like, it has the charm and the adventure of a middle grade, and it's so easy to read, and it has the kind of characters and maturity of a YA, and it has the lyrical prose of a fiction, like a literary fiction, and it's just done beautifully, and I absolutely loved it. I was so invested in this book. I read it in a couple of days. I just wanted to carry on reading. Like, I read it in a few sittings, loved the characters. The themes in here that were explored were just really important and felt really well handled and heartfelt, and I just loved it. And there's some lines in here that were just really beautiful. So yeah, I'm really glad that I picked this one up. It was absolutely lovely to read, and I think I have to give it 5 out of 5 stars. I really love this book. And the last one I picked up in the month of January is I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Debaki, and this is by Beck Sahi. I'm sorry if I really pronounced that wrong. But anyway, I really like this book. This is a very short, it's only just under 200 pages, memoir following the author as she goes into, she meets a psychiatric therapist. She starts seeing a psychiatrist. Don't know why I keep mixing that up in my head every time I discuss this book. But she starts seeing a psychiatrist about her underlying depression and anxiety, which is like persistent depression. It does cover it in the introduction, and there is like a term for the specific depression that she suffers from. So the therapy she receives is for dysthymia, or persistent depressive disorder, which is a state of constant light depression, and this is following the author as she goes through therapy for that. And it also kind of discusses a lot about her life, her friendships, her relationships, her job, which is at a publishing house, This one was really, really interesting, and I read it in just a couple of sittings as well, because most of it is written in this kind of transcript format, so it's very, very quick to read. And this was just really fascinating to read about. I feel like a lot of people will find something relatable in these pages, whether it's about anxiety, whether it's about depression. I definitely related to some of the stuff in here about anxiety, and it was just, yeah, very, very beautifully done. Their therapist is really interesting to kind of read their reactions to what the author is saying in these sessions, and I just found it fascinating. Like it was just really interesting. I feel like it's really hard to kind of discuss and rate non-fiction. Like it's much, much harder than fiction, and in some ways it can be like, I don't want to rate this person's life, but I did find it absolutely fascinating to read about, so I'm gonna give this one 4, maybe 4.5 out of 5 stars. Okay, that is all the 10 books that I read in January. I hope you enjoyed watching this wrap up. Let me know how you did in January, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.